Today is going to be a very special program. It's going to be different. It's going to be a tribute to our friend and our World War II hero, although he did not consider himself a hero, Brigadier General Bud Anderson. And the reason that most of you are here is because you were probably one of the lucky people that spoke with Bud, or if you were even more fortunate, you could call him a friend. He was a friend to so many people, and he always had time for the kids and for us older people who loved Bud and were able to spend time with him. So I'm back to the script here. None of that was planned. Bud was a friend to hundreds of us in our Warbird community who share the loss of this great man. I'm wearing my flight suit today in his honor because flying with Bud was a big part of the wonderful times that we shared during almost 30 years of friendship. Now, Bud passed away at 102, so that tells you how old he was when we met, and I don't know how I could have known Bud for 30 years when I'm only 39, but there you go. But flying with Bud was a highlight for me over those many, many years in so many different airplanes. And whether we were flying a J3 Cub or the Mustang, Bud loved to fly, and he loved his Warbirds friends. He was energized by all of you, so thank you for being here. To celebrate this life well lived. I have so many memories and that I could share, but we have people coming on who will share their memories with you. With a twinkle in his eye, though, and his special smile, I can still hear Bud saying, "That's not bad for a girl." So I thank Jack Roush, who will be out here in just a few minutes, and Jim Hagedorn for allowing me to fly the Old Crow for many, many years. And I thank my thanks to Bob Bull that you will also meet this afternoon for agreeing to carry on the legacy. I think Jack would not have sold any of his airplanes had he not found guys that he could say, "You have to honor Bud." So to move forward, today we will also recognize others who passed since we last met here in Oshkosh in 2023, who were friends and participants in Warbirds Review. And during the first part of the presentation, as I alluded to, we will hear from Jack Roush, Jim Hagedorn, Ray Fowler, who has been a big part of keeping these airplanes flying for everyone over the years, and then we will introduce Bob Bull. And we'll end with a very fitting tribute, a military tribute ceremony to Bud, where we will have the folding of the flag ceremony. The flag was flown over the Eagle and the Veterans Tribute that you see here. That flag folding will end with a presentation to me of the flag that I will then take to the family in California next week for Bud's memorial that will be held there. At this point, I would like for you to direct your attention to the Jumbotron for the introductory video that the very talented Air-to-Air TV, Scott Guyat, and the entire crew have put together for you to enjoy.
My dad used to put me behind the wheel in his lap and let me drive a Model A pickup. I got to the top and there was a car parked in the normal way to get in. And it overloaded my mind. and my dad grabbed the wheel and everything, and before we knew it, we were down to the thing and we ran into the garage. I can't remember when I didn't want to fly. As a youngster, I had that enthusiasm for aviation, and I really don't know. I was just fascinated by it. I looked up the requirements. You had to have 2 years of college in those days, 20 years old, unmarried, and of course physically fit. We went to primary, basic, and advanced schools, and then from Bakersfield I went to Phoenix, Arizona, to Luke Field. And as part of that training, you did actually shoot some 50 caliber mounted on the T6. The famous T6 probably trained more people than anybody in the whole world. Well, when I had the car the whole time we were in training, I had no idea that he had a 39 Ford convertible, tan, and all this. Of course, that's what I had. I had it from 1941 through 45, and then he sent Ed in there, and he had some tools scattered all over, you know, big tools, hammers and big pipe wrench, you know, and stuff. And Ed says, "Hey, Jack's having a little trouble with a carburetor out there, and he needs your help." And Jack's eyes got a little big, you know, and "Hey, I can't get this screw out. Do you think it'd be all right to use a chisel?" And he says, "Now wait a minute, let's." And then he knew he'd been had when he could see. It was, you know, you were scared. You're scared of the unknown. You didn't know what was going to happen. You know, how am I going to react? Am I going to fight or am I going to run? You know, it's kill or be killed. It's not, you know, this is real. So I'm flying formation with him. We're doing the escorting. And somebody on the radio just says, "Mustang, Mustang, there's one on your tail." And I said, "Holy smokes," you know, and he zigzagged around a little bit. And I'm saying, "Boy, I'm right there with him though." So we keep on going, and he said, "Mustang, Mustang, he's still on your tail," you know. And I said, "Holy smokes," you know. And so I zipped out a little bit, and the guy hollers again, and so my flight lead then, he just whipped, he thought they were talking about him. And so he took some drastic evasive maneuvers, and I'm staying right with him, you know. Then pretty soon he lost me. And I pull up, and there's no airplanes in the sky. You know, a little while ago there was all kinds of airplanes, and here I am over Germany all by myself, the thing you're not supposed to do. Well, fortunately, about, you know, it seemed like forever, but then I saw an airplane, I went up and joined on him, and he was my flight lead. We never found out who the guy was that hollered, you know, and of course I was green. I should have slipped out and looked around and said, "Hey, lead, you're okay, you know, there's nobody behind us," but I had no idea what was going on. I was just hanging on. And that's my first combat experience at all.
Every year at Oshkosh since 2001, Warbirds in Review has featured great legends of aviation. Today, we celebrate the life of one such legend, World War II Triple Ace Brigadier General Clarence E. Bud Anderson. He passed away in his sleep May 17, 2024, at 102 years old. As a close member of our Warbird family, Bud Anderson and his stories will be remembered.
The next time he come around and I'm coming at him at this high angle off, this might help a little bit here. What was happening, that I'm just following him down. I need two hands to do all this dogfighting here,
I was wanting to get in there and help you with it. You need three hands, actually, right now.
Fighter pilots, if I had to sit on my hands, I wouldn't be able to tell you this story. I need a prop here.
This is my job. That's the reason I'm still here.
When you're in a dogfight, you want to get right on a guy's tail. I tell my non-drinking friends or my Baptist friends that it's named after the most intelligent bird that flies in the sky, the crow. And that generally is recognized. The crow is a very cagey bird. But my drinking buddies all know it's named after that good old Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey.
Of course, the star is that old guy right there who is, truly a legend. And like, no joke, a fighter pilot legend. Jack Roush, who has added so much to this ability. When I bought my airplane from him, he interviewed me like I was a scrub. And part of it is making sure that if you're going to buy this, you know what it is, that it's a piece of history of the United States, it's important, and that you respect it and share it. And that's part of why we're here.
I love to fly. I learn something every time I fly, and I enjoy it. And to be able to fly a Mustang at my age is something very special. And not just a Mustang, say a Mustang painted like mine. Do you realize that I've had 4 different airplanes, old crows? And there's two of them are still flying. One of them crashed and one got sold and is being repainted at the moment. But when I was able to fly those things, I don't know, it was a special event. I think you can imagine.
Had the honor to help MC a number of presentations that Colonel Anderson has made to the public, both at Oshkosh and some other places around the country. Take note of the fact that he's one of America's greatest heroes. The kind of person, as a man and as a young man, as an adult, that we'd all like to have been ourselves, or we'd certainly like for our children to be. He's a great patriot and a great brave defender of our country and our freedoms. He's one of the world's greatest aviators. But past that, he's one of my dearest friends.
We're going to lead off with Jack here in a few minutes, but I'll get these other gentlemen out here first. Jack, if you want to take a seat, we'll let the others fend for themselves. Oh, hi, Jim.
As it always is.
Jim Hagedorn, if you'd grab the next chair there, pull it up for you. Okay. And then Bob Bull. And last but certainly not least, Ray Fowler. The video that Scott Guyat so talentedly pieced together of all the events over the years pretty much summed up a lot of our affection for Bud and some of our experiences with Bud. But I'd like to go to Jack right now and ask you to tell us a little bit about your experiences, your friendship with now General Bud Anderson, who unfortunately this is the first year and Warbirds in Review will never be the same with Bud not here. Jack, it's all yours.
When I started coming to Oshkosh more than 20 years ago, it was with the encouragement of Eden County Bowling and to celebrate Bud Anderson's military career and to hold him up as an example of what a true patriot means to the generations that follow their acts of bravery that they are engaged in. I regard Bud as a man whose values and reputations a father would wish to be held by and served by a son or a son-in-law or oneself. As the trials and tribulations are forced on our complex daily lives, Bud demonstrated his unselfish nature through his yielding of the 3/4 of an enemy shot down in action during World War II, and through his repeated recommendation of other aces, overshadowing his own accomplishments for the transfer of their name and imagery to the P-51 Mustang restorations I've completed over the last 20-odd years. Bud was a dear friend to me and my family, as well as to many of the folks that share aviation interest. He set a high standard for not only aviators to measure themselves to, but to the patriots and the citizenry that he helped to preserve and defend during the war. I enjoyed his company and looked forward to seeing him, which occurred frequently over the period of the years. He was instrumental in the development of the airplanes. He had advice on what he thought was the best features of the B model and the D model that were restored. And he was appreciative of the effort we made to keep him in flying status. Ed and Connie recognized his contributions and the impact he could have on the EAA community through their promotion of the Warbirds and review aspect of the EAA experience. Jim Hagedorn and Scott's also recognized that there was a great opportunity to not only showcase their products, but to recognize the kind of citizen that Bud was and what he meant to everybody that had contact with him. I had a contact with a fellow by the name of Mickey Rupp. That was a Reno air racer, and he was a purveyor of all things P-51. And he was a friend of mine through my racing experience. And he told me one day, he sent me a picture of a Mustang that he had taken on the ramp of one of the places where I was racing. He says that maybe you get yourself one of these one day. And I told him right back at him, I said, when I get the money and have the time, I said, I'll have a Mustang and we'll use it for something that would be worthwhile. The experience I had with Bud was unlike I have with any other person I wasn't related to. He was an inspiration to me in all kinds of ways. We went to the first reunion of the 357th Fighter Group in South Carolina, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And he insisted I sent the Mustang down for him to have at the reunion. And he was anxious for me to get there. I arrived in my 421 Cessna and was anxious to have a ride with him in the Mustang. He helped me get in the back seat of the Mustang, same airplane, the D model that Jim Hagedorn has and has recently transferred ownership to Ray Fowler and his foundation. But anyway, he had this airplane there, and he got me in the back seat and took off, and it had a overheat. The radiator had a problem, and it popped off. And he came back and landed it after just one circle of the airport. And he says, maybe it needs to have fluid put in it. So we put fluid in it and got it all the way full again. And he took off a second time, and he got in the way of an airliner that was trying to land at Myrtle Beach. And so we had to interrupt our trip until I fixed my radiator. But Bud was always willing for me to try something that could be better than what we had, realizing it's hard to improve on 1940s technology. As one of Bud's friends, Chuck Yeager, used to tell me, remind me when I was trying to improve things. We kept it going. I used some lithium as a heat transfer agent in the exhaust valves, and lithium would vaporize and go to the top of the stem, and then it would not fall back down, as I guess the engineers of Rolls-Royce and Packard found out back in the day. So I sent Bud out with these valves that were not going to work as well as the original valves had. And he broke the head off a valve, and it came back running on 11 cylinders. And I thought, wouldn't that have been a disaster if I'd have killed a great war ace with some of my effort to improve things more than they should be. That was an example of what I tried to do for Bud that didn't work out right. But I knew this day would come when we started with 20-odd years ago and coming to Oshkosh. I knew the day would come when Bud wouldn't be here, and it would be a sad day. The P-51 Mustang was the center of his World War II effort. And as I was able to retrace the steps that had been made to make the engine the airplane available with the Merlin engine, it came clear to me what a tremendous effort the war industry has made to make things better for all the allies who are competing against the Axis. The Bud will be forever in my memory, and I look forward to sharing his stories of the things he did, which I was a part of many of his explanations of the war experience he had. It'll be not without a tear that I remember him as time goes on. Jim, do you have something to say?
Thank you, Jack. Now, Jim, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Hey, y'all. Whoa. I was just thinking, any military fighter pilots out there, so a few of us. So it'll be most meaningful what I'm saying about Bud to military aviators. It was a little bit of an accident that I ended up having a relationship with Bud, because Jack put me in the back of a Mustang, and I had known him maybe 10 minutes, and we were at VNE, I don't know, I think down low, it's close to 500 miles an hour, below the trees. I didn't know the guy. We landed, and I said, I have to buy one of these. But the old Crow airplane was my connection with Bud. And I think actually it was a better airplane. The airplane flies really, really beautifully. So I come to my first Oshkosh after I got checked out in the Crow. And Bud is there, Connie's late husband, Ed, is there. And if you watch the video, you know, fighter pilot hands telling stories. And we at Scott's hosted the Gathering of Mustangs in Columbus, Ohio. And so we had a big chalet and all that stuff. And Bud spent a lot of time with us. And he was talking to our associates. And he was having a hard time managing both the hands and the mic. But he got to tell the story about his most challenging kill. And he kept the mic, and I got to be his hands. And that, a big honor, you know, for a young fighter pilot to be Bud Anderson's hands as he's telling about the most challenging dogfight. So that's really, now, you know, they had that, all those airplanes out there. I don't know how many people were at that Oshkosh a couple years ago. We had, like, every Mustang was out there. And so, you know, it was awesome for Bud, and probably was awesome for you guys. It was not so awesome for, at least for me, because I was in the Crow, one of the lead airplanes up there, and it was a hot day, and the wind wasn't really perfect coming down the inlet. And for those of people who were Mustang drivers, they can start to get real hot and try to overheat. And so during that thing, we all had to sit there and hold position, and my engine was running so hot that the first thing we did after that thing was pull the cowling off, and there's like little fuse things or some damn things that'll melt if the engine gets too hot, and we hadn't done that. But I was in that thing, and there's no power brake, so I'm holding, you know, and I got the engine up at like 1600 trying to get more coolant through the engine and the radiator. And so it was great for everybody. It was super loud. It sounded great, I think. But it was super uncomfortable for me. So that was, Bud was happy. It was hard on me. Are you going to say anything? No.
Well, if you know, it's like, okay.
He's the new guy.
Yeah. Okay, the new guy. So, Jim, thank you very much, and I hope we can. That was a great story. I think we enjoyed. Maybe we can bleep you out where we can share it with other people. But thank you, everyone. So, to very quickly reflect on that was 2019 that we were able to do that for Bud, and he was able to drive down the flight line, see the Mustangs there, and their salute to him. We are going to do that again on Friday of this week. At the end of the Warbirds show, the show will close with a missing man tribute, but prior to that, we're going to have a lineup of P-51s and invite the other fighters and the T-6s to line up on the taxiway and have a salute to Bud. However, this time we'll do a run-up and shut them down. We're not going to make you sit there and let them get hot. So that's the plan this year. We have a flag salute from the aircraft. I think it'll be really special. So hang around for the Warbird show on Friday. Thank you, Jim, for that lead-in, so I remember to say that. So now let me skip over Bob, because he's the new guy, you know. So Ray, okay. So a hand for Jim again, and your impromptu words. And for the sponsorship and making this possible for the level that we are able to do that. yeah, a big thank you to Jim and to Ron and Diane Fagan, who are here in the audience, as always. They make this possible. Ray Fowler, you had the opportunity to know Bud Anderson very well over the years, and when do you remember when you were first introduced to Bud?
Yes, I really do. So very incredible to be here and obviously be tied in with Connie and Jack. Back, I guess it's been well over a decade before. Actually, I guess it's 15 years or so. Connie was flying one of Jack's airplanes, and or actually I was flying one of Jack's airplanes, and Connie was flying Jim's airplane, and decided to swap with me, actually. So that's the only reason I started flying Jim's airplane, the Old Crow. So she just said, here, Jim won't care. Well, apparently he did care because he found out I flew the airplane back. And but anyway, since I didn't wreck it, he continued to have me do it. But again, just being a part of the Old Crow, and they ask, where do you find the stories that are the most impactful for us? And it's very difficult to come up with, but I will say, just like in the video where they had the statue unveil for Bud at his home airport in Auburn, California, and so this will kind of actually cover everybody that's up here, and I'm sure it's very something that's impactful to me. Just to get to go fly any Mustang is special. To get to fly an airplane like the Old Crow and with the history and be friends with Bud Anderson is something that none of us could ever replace, and I'm sure. Like most people here has probably met Bud if you've been here over the years and had his signature, and I'll talk about that kind of at the end. But having the privilege to fly with Jack Roush's airplane, the B model, and Jim's D model, when the phone rings and it has Jack's number or Jim's number, it's probably something that's a good deal, and it's probably fun. So I don't even remember the year it was when they did the statue unveil, but Jack I talked to Jack about it, and Jim, I think, called and said, you know what, I want the Old Crow to go all the way out for that. So he picked his, two best Mustang pilots and his only Mustang pilots, Connie Bolin and myself. We switched legs, if you remember that, going
right?
out. So his two best and his two worst, actually. I'm not quite sure who was who and who. But so Jim pulls out his credit card and says, I want the airplane there for that event. And at the time, it's sitting in Stuart, Florida. So I can tell you, Stuart, Florida to Auburn, California is a long ride in a Mustang. And again, me and Connie switched out legs and scared ourselves on that trip all the way out and all the way back, to include probably the worst weather I've ever flown a Mustang in, if you remember, icing up in the airplane and all that. And so, of course, I didn't tell Jim about that at the time. But yeah, so we went out there really effectively what was for a day. And every time every time Bud came out and looked at that airplane, you could tell how much it meant to him that people like Jim would do this and Jack would do this. So now fast forward to this, several times over, I get a call from Jack and he wants it to go out. There's two aces that are going to be out in Lewiston, Idaho, and so same thing. We've flown East Coast, West Coast for really just one-day events with the airplane. At the time, is Gary Peters? Is he here somewhere? So anyway, they actually wrap a King Air. Are you over here somewhere, Gary? So anyway, there he is. So he has a Mustang out there, but he wraps a King Air for Bud and picks him up in the Old Crow King Air, but doesn't tell him the Old Crow is going to be there flying on his wing, and we intercept him coming into Lewiston, Idaho, with both Old Crows, which is amazing. Same for his 100th birthday. So Paul Draper that flew Bob's now B model. He flew the B model out all the way out from Detroit, and I took the D model and went for his 100th birthday all the way out just for the 100th birthday event and back. And then it kind of, I'll leave with this. I ended up going to his last event. So I get the phone call, this is going to be his last public event. And so we're going to go out and support him for this last public event. And same thing, cross country. P-51, by the way, is a great airplane for cross country. It's really, it's a wonderful airplane to fly, particularly if you have an autopilot. But every time, by the way, I go through Granite Falls, and Ron and Diane are so nice to support the airplanes through when we come, and also has a beautiful tribute to Bud and a briefing building and a statue to Bud there at their museum. But so I go out to this, and again, it's the last event for Bud, and it's a very emotional thing for all of us. And he comes out and sees the airplane, and then we fly back. And I'm like, wow, it's just, I can't believe it's coming to an end. And I think at the time he's 100 and maybe 101. And we did fly him here at Oshkosh, by the way, at 100 years old in the two-seat Mustang. So I'm like, it's sad that I made his last event, but it had to come to an end. And of course, next week, I see him at Reno at his next last event. So he kept going and going. And I have no idea how many more events that Bud attended, but he loved it. I mean, it's who he was. And just, seeing who he was when he was around the people and telling the stories was amazing. And if you got a signature from Bud, even when he was in 100, and at a certain point he had to stop doing a signature because he would write out, and he was very slow with his signature, and it was very deliberate. And watching him do a signature was amazing to me. But I will say, just like all the calls, and I'll end with this, with the calls that I got from Jack Roush and Jim Hagedorn to go take airplanes. Here we are about 6 months ago, and this is not just for Bud, but this is for all veterans. So, you get a small glimpse of what these guys have done for veterans, but this is, across the board for a lot of other veterans. We were flying another 100-year-old veteran in Atlanta, at an airplane, a TF Mustang, and it ended up, it canceled. So now I'm the person that calls the new owner, and certainly didn't know Bob very well, and I said, is there any chance of you coming to fly up for this? Without hesitation, he jumped in his airplane, flew up to Atlanta. So it's kind of great. Now I'm calling him to come support events. He came up and flew another 100-year-old in Atlanta, and we had to put up a four-ship, and it was just a huge deal. So I know we're going to talk about a little bit of the passing of the torch to Bob for the new airplane, but I can tell both of you guys he's going to continue that legacy. And it was amazing that you came up. It was another amazing day to go do that. And without hesitation, just like these guys have done, he sent his airplane to support this. And again, we hope to keep this legacy going for forever.
Thank you, Ray, and thanks to Ray flying a lot of different airplanes. We keep the airplanes going, but that was a nice segue into Bob Bull, and we all who love Bud and love these airplanes appreciate the fact that these airplanes went to somebody who cares about not only the aircraft, but the history they represent and the people they represent. So, Bob, from all of us, thank you. And I know that Jack said you absolutely have to be a part of this or you can't have them. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty much. I kind of had the same interview process that Jim had spoke about. But, yeah, we're here to support, Bud and everybody here that's restored the airplanes over the years and maintains them. I think one of the things we've done is we try to associate a person with an aircraft. So our first one was Joe Joyner in Rebel, and it's here. And as you meet younger people and you explain Joe, they want to hear, like I'll see them and they'll, how's Joe? So they not only associate, I think what Jack did with the plane with Bud and Old Crow is an important way to continue our history.
Okay, so you have more than the Old Crow and the Gentleman Jim, is that correct? And we're glad you do.
Yes.
Don't be embarrassed that you own 5 Mustangs.
Yes, I think we have 5. Yes. I think there's 6.
Oh, you mean 6. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Pardon me. I was totally in.
There's a point where it almost becomes hoarding, right? Where it's
But look, my wife might be watching this, so you really shouldn't say that.
And I hesitated to say how many, but let me tell you, you are the keeper of the treasure. I believe Jack Roush said that. So, yes, we are. And we're running a little short on time. Bob, thank you. Will you come back next year and be our main speaker for the Old Crow and the Gentleman Jim?
As long as these guys come back, I'm here. That
Okay.
was the commitment we
All
made
right.
to Jack.
So, thank you. So, yeah. Next year, I'd like for us to have an opportunity to talk more about the aircraft, and we will go back to more of a normal show next year. I want to thank all of you for being here. The last part of this program is, I think, going to be very moving, very special. I'm going to step out of the presentation by saying thanks to all of you. And for military honors, as I said at the beginning, we are going to have a flag folding and a presentation of the flag. And to conduct the military honors, I'm going to ask Brigadier General retired Ed McElhenney to step forward. Thank you, sir. And in addition to the honors for Bud, we are also going to recognize other veterans who were a big part of Warbirds in Review. And unfortunately, the list is rather long this year. We've lost several of our veterans, again, who played a big part in Warbirds in Review. In alphabetical order, I'd like to start with Major General Bill Anders, retired U.S. Air Force. Frank Borman, one of my favorite presentations here at Warbirds in Review. Frank Borman, who is a colonel, USAF, he and Lovell did a wonderful presentation at Warbirds in Review for us one year. From there we go to Danny Bolin, my late husband Ed's brother. Danny was one of our original moderators in Warbirds in Review. He flew the B-17 for many, many years with EAA. It was a highlight of his flying career to be able to fly that. To Danny Bolin, who was U.S. Air Force and Memphis Air National Guard. Major General retired Joe Engel. Not hard to find a more pleasant person than Joe Engel. Much of the character the same as you would find in Bud Anderson. So Joe Engel. Chuck Marshall served in the U.S. Air Force as a missile man. He was our Warbird treasurer. Although he didn't participate in Warbirds in Review, he certainly watched the money and helped me along the way to keep this going. Nick Nebel. Nick served as an Army medic and was an integral part of the Warbirds in Review production. You always saw, I love that picture of Nick. Is that just a classic veteran picture? He was such a wonderful man. We really miss Nick. And last but not least in my list, and I know I'm missing a lot of people who should be recognized, Dick Rutan, Lieutenant Colonel, retired USAF, Vietnam. Been here several times. I think the last time Dick was here, he says to me, I'm Dick Rutan, I flew around the world. I said, Dick, I don't care. We're going to talk about Vietnam. So to all of those veterans, could we recognize them in the appropriate manner?
Thank you, Connie. And thank you, folks, for being here and honoring our deceased veterans. Honor Guard, post. The portion of the flag denoting honor is the canton of blue, containing the stars representing states or veterans served in uniform. The field of blue dresses from left to right and is inverted only when draped as a funeral cloth over the casket of a veteran who has served our country honorably in uniform. In the United States Armed Forces, at the ceremony of retreat, the flag is lowered, folded in a triangle, and kept under watch throughout the night as a tribute to our nation's honored dead. The next morning, it is brought out, and at the ceremony of reveille, flown high as a symbol of belief in the resurrection of the body. The flag folding ceremony represents the same religious principles on which the United States was originally founded. The first fold of our flag is a symbol of life. The second fold is a symbol of our belief in eternal life. The third fold is made in honor and remembrance of the veteran departing our ranks and who gave a portion of his or her life for the defense of our country to attain peace throughout the world. The fourth fold represents our weaker nature as American citizens trusting in God. It is Him we turn to in times of peace as well as in times of war for His divine guidance. The fifth fold is a tribute to our country. In the words of Stephen Decatur, our country in dealing with other countries, may she always be right, but it is still our country, right or wrong. The sixth fold is where our hearts lie. It is with our heart that we pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The seventh fold is a tribute to our armed forces. For it is through our armed forces that we protect our country and our flag against all enemies, whether they be found within or without the boundaries of our republic. The eighth fold is a tribute to the one who entered into the valley of the shadow of death, that we might see the light of day and to honor our mother, for whom it flies on Mother's Day. The ninth fold is a tribute to womanhood. It has been through their faith, love, loyalty, and devotion that has molded the character of the men and women who have made this country great. The 10th fold is a tribute to Father, who has also given his sons and daughters for the defense of our country since he or she was first born. The 11th fold represents the lower portion of the seal of King David and King Solomon and glorifies the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The 12th fold represents an emblem of eternity and glorifies God the Father, the Son, and Holy Ghost. The 13th and last fold, when the flag is completely folded, the stars are uppermost, reminding us of our national motto, "In God we trust."
I humbly accept this flag on behalf of Bud Anderson's family. I will present it to them next week. Teresa?
be seeing you in all the old familiar places that this heart of mine embraces all day through. In that small cafe, the park across the way, the children's carousel, the chestnut tree, the wishing well. I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer's day, in everything that's bright and gay. I'll always think of you that way. I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is new, I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you. In that small cafe, the park across the way, the children's carousel, the chestnut tree, the wishing well. I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer's day, in everything that's bright and gay. I'll always think of you that way. I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is new, I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you.
Fly on, old friend, to whatever waits for you. Fly on, old friend, your course was always true. And now we understand there's a fair wind in the blue. But here there's none who would not fly with you. Oh, I have slipped the surly bonds of earth and danced the skies on laughter's silvered wings. Sunward I've climbed and joined the tumbling mirth of sun clouds, done 100 things that you have never dreamed of. Wheeled and soared and swung high in the sunlit silence. I've chased the wind alone. I've chased the wind belong. So fly on, old friend, to whatever waits for you. Fly on, old friend, your course was always true. And now we understand there's a fair wind in the blue. But here there's none who would not fly with you. Up the long, delirious, burning blue, I've topped the windswept heights with easy grace, where never lark or ever eagle flew, the untrespassed sanctity of space. And with silent mind, lifting high, I've trod, put out my hand and touched perhaps the face of God, touched the face of God. Fly on, old friend, to whatever waits for you. Fly on, old friend, your course was always true. And now we understand there's a fair wind in the blue. But here there's none who would not fly with you. Here there's none who would not fly with you. And when we fly, we'll always fly